we're all mindful that it's a very important week this week. It was around this same time, a week after, where we did the ceremony when we came back from Gallipoli, with the Remengeri dreaming story, Marrawuy Palkaa on the Yidaki that we did ceremony in Gallipoli at ANZAC Cove. So it's a very significant time over the next couple of weeks in Remengeri history, and particularly from a spiritual perspective, very significant. And I'm just very mindful of that, very respectful of that. So that event that we did when we did ceremony down at the Australian War Memorial on Ngunnawal country, at the Kano was supposed to come to that. He was invited, obviously, and Christine to come to that event. We'd only just returned from Gallipoli. Not much before that. We were still waiting for the soil to be passed through customs and all that stuff, and that's the only thing that we were waiting for. So that was a very, very significant, particularly when you look at the Wirrachin. When you look at the Wirrachin story, and you look at the kangaroo skin and how amplified the ancestors and the Southern Cross are on that skin, and the role that the Yidaki plays in bringing the spirit back, because that was the Yidaki that was played during that ceremony at ANZAC Cove, and like Great Uncle Arthur and so many of our other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander men, but not only our warriors, but particularly from our spiritual perspective for our First Nations peoples. I don't think people still get the magnitude of what happened in that event. Playing the Yidaki and doing traditional dance in Turkey on a battlefield where the world was involved, and we had the honour of speaking the Remengeri language, paying respect to all of those warriors with Yidaki, inviting the spirits back. Now, we know that the Southern Cross in our culture, in Remengeri culture, is the beacon or the medium that our spiritual ancestors used to find their way back home. But having the Yidaki being played there, with the soil being collected, and the ceremony happening on a sacred site like Gallipoli and at ANZAC Cove, bringing the two sacred ceremonies together, so powerful. And the Remengeri Marrawuy is painted and embedded into that Yidaki. The dreaming story is embedded into that Yidaki that was played in that ceremony in 2015. I still don't think a lot of people really get the significance of that, but that's okay, because that's a story still being told. I caught up. I did a ceremony. There's a couple of ceremonies this week for Legacy and for another organisation, and I caught up with the. They invited me to do. Many times I get invited to do acknowledgement in language, and of course I always acknowledge the ancient Aboriginal language of our Remengeri people, and there was just one fellow who was there, who was a guest speaker as well, happened to be the director, curator, whatever you call him, of the Maritime Museum in Sydney. And I just had the opportunity to catch up with him because I was the guest speaker at this very same event just before COVID hit. And we had the opportunity to go Her Excellency Margaret Beasley was there, and a whole entourage. But it was really interesting when I had the opportunity just to share a little bit about Marrawuy, and he is just he's not Indigenous, but he's in charge of and control of the largest museums here in Sydney, Maritime Museum, and he was just so he's really so keen to catch up with me because he wants to hear more of the story. He wants to hear more of the story, and these are the sort of opportunities that I guess I believe will complement exactly this heart and spirit behind what we're all doing. You know, like what we're trying to do: get the word out, get the knowledge out, get the language out, get the dreaming out in a safe and respectful way. And
absolutely,
yeah. So I'll keep an eye on that. He gave me his card. He wanted, I think he wanted to grab me there and then, and there was no way I could do it right there. Not then.
But, for the people that don't understand, Col,
yeah.
Can you explain the Yidaki?
Sorry.
Can you explain what it means?
What,
the Yidaki.
Oh, the Yidaki. Oh, sorry, the didgeridoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Yeah, look, the story with the didgeridoo was after we had the ceremony at Victor Harbour with Wirrajin with the kangaroo skin, and the magnificent artwork that you're all familiar with. You would have all seen the kangaroo skin, which still now hangs at Russell Officers at the headquarters of the Chief of Army in Canberra. I caught up with Unc, and we as we were talking about moving forward and how Wirrajin was going to move forward, it took us into that space of into the dreaming, the ongoing dreaming. A few years later, but of the Marrawuy Ngurruy Palkaa, and we know this. I think I've shared with you you know Wirrajin, and Marrawuy is about blackfella coming together in peace. But as part of that, it encapsulates much of the dreaming of Wirrajin, because it doesn't just capture Wirrajin. What we need to understand with Marrawuy, Wirrajin forms the basis of Marrawuy. When you look at the Yidaki, the didgeridoo, the very first symbol that you see at the base of the artwork that's been painted on the didgeridoo is Wirrajin. The same artwork that is on the kangaroo skin. The same artwork, exactly the same artwork that Uncle Kano had burnt into the skin. So I found it interesting because there was some other artwork and some other dreaming that, not so much dreaming, more story, although it's connected to the Dungari people, but about spiritual, the impact of what's been happening to our people, and the influence and impact it's had on our own people through another story called Yor. And Yor is about and Uncle Kano was involved in that, and so was Christine. That was that defence program modelling that I, with others, developed, and it had its own artwork. And the whole story is he and Uncle Kano added the symbolism of the Yor into the kangaroo skin. So it's a continuation. And that formed the basis then of the artwork that was embedded into the didgeridoo, the Yidaki, that we then presented to. We did ceremony. I presented it to Chief of Army, to the Army. It wasn't presented to the Chief. He received it, but as I think you know the story. He received it in July. We did ceremony in July in Canberra. We collected the soil, played that Yidaki, in Canberra. Then took it in August to Gallipoli, did ceremony with it at ANZAC Cove in traditional dress, our Aboriginal men, and the men that played it were Yolngu uncles and a lawman. One of them is actually my brother. I think I've mentioned that to you before, Norman Damaringu. He's the elder, and we're in culture we're brothers. His children are my children are his children. His grandchildren are my grandchildren. My grandchildren are his grandchildren. That's how close our relationship is. But he was the one who played the didgeridoo over there when we did the ceremony. The coming together of the two ceremonies, which in essence was honouring warrior spirit, but also everyone was invited for warrior spirit to Yidaki, the spiritual instrument, that didgeridoo, to be used as a medium to bring spirit home with the soil. And that's why when we brought it home and did that ceremony that Uncle was going to come to in the November, we spread it, combined it, picked it up. Same spiritualism and symbolism, I guess, Steve, as the rocks. It's not just an object. It's not just a thing. It has very much significance. And so by bringing that home, then we actually went through another ceremony where that same mixed soil was spread. That was left there for anyone to come and grab a handful of soil from that space. And it's outside the memorial. It's at the Lone Pine Tree. And they've been invited with the permission of the Ngunnawal people to take that soil, the handful of soil, and take it back to their country and do ceremony on their country out of respect for whoever they've lost or loved ones or whatever the case may be, or those that suffered. And let's face it, during world wars, everyone suffers. No one misses out. Everyone suffers in one way, shape, or form. And that's one of the beautiful things about the spirit behind Marrawuy, because when we unpack that language, it's about blackfella and blackfella coming together, but in peace. And that's the spirit. That's the spirit. And and what we're doing, I believe, is the foundation. But the basis of all of that comes back to Wirrichin. And as we talked about, Wirrichin is not just something that happened in August, on the 1st of August at Victor Harbour. Then Wirrichin's been here with us, and as Uncle tells us, it's not a new thing. In fact, it's a very sacred and respectful, very, very ancient thing. And it's not even a thing. It's a spiritual, so very spiritual. So when this guy heard, I only shared a little bit, but he can't wait to get all of the story and just know to share and get the word out about, the dreaming, what it represents and what it means and how important it is. Particularly in a day like today, when I'm talking one mob today that I work with, and boy, oh boy, they're struggling, even in their own backyard, and we all do. I mean, let's face it, we have issues in our own families, let alone our own mob. So it's a big job, and we just got to keep optimistic and keep working on it, I guess.
Yeah,